Hey everyone who's on the bridge. We're just gonna wait another minute or so here, give another couple minutes for. Seems like folks are still joining. All right, we'll get started. I'm gonna be pretty quick here today, and then I'm gonna hand it off to our presenters. If at any point today you have any questions, please just throw them in the questions box. I'll be monitoring it. We'll likely address them towards the end. But yeah, so today we're going to be joined by, or my name is Dan with Viirtue. We're going to be joined by Ryan Beer, Director of Channel Sales for Bigleaf Networks. He'll be presenting first. And then we'll also be joined by Alex, who's the VP of Sales from Tenfold, who will be presenting as well. And then basically today's two products you guys will be learning about, both sellable. So it's going to be Bigleaf Networks' SD-Wan product. It's pretty cool and different from any SD-Wan product I've ever seen. So that's why I'm especially excited to get them to you guys so you can see what it's all about. And then Tenfold as well. They're really wonderful tool to integrate or provide enterprise level CRM integrations for a lot of the popular CRMs out there with your application. So that's going to be today what we're going to be going over. And then we also are going to be, I just want to give you guys a sneak peek next month. Just keep an eye out. We're going to be doing a webinar for Microsoft Teams. So kind of explain to you guys how you can use the Viirtue calling plans for Microsoft Teams. We'll talk about how we built out our network for that. For no, you don't have to use any hardware or anything like that. So it's a pretty cool tool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over the wheels to Ryan, and just let me know if you have any issues there, Ryan.
Okay. All right. Share my screen. Get it over here. Sorry, I got a couple screens. Give me 1 second real quick. Okay. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep, should be good.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction today into our version of SD-WAN. I think Dan did a good job of prefacing it with that we are different than some of the other solutions out there. So when we get to the end, or if you have any questions, feel free to chime in and let me know. But I will go ahead and jump in. Okay. So really our focus in the SD-WAN space is really around a couple of different things that we're aiming to do for our customers. So one being giving our customers the ability to use multiple different internet connections really aggregated together at the same time. So not having to really pay for a backup circuit that you hope to never use anymore, but really given the ability to use all of the available bandwidth and us aggregating those internet connections together through our SD-WAN device that we deploy on site. So we have 4 WAN ports on our device where we support up to 4 of any type of circuit, and it doesn't matter to us who the providers are or what types of circuits they are. Really, our role is to seamlessly aggregate those internet connections together to provide reliability for mission critical applications that customers are trying to use. So when I say mission critical, I mean things like hosted VoIP, Office 365, Salesforce, cloud-based medical record, well, whatever it is that's important to that business that's really trying to drive efficiency. But a lot of the hesitation has been because the internet is unreliable. And that's really where kind of the need for SD-WAN grew out of, was to be able to, like I said, aggregate those multiple different types of internet connections together from different providers and be able to seamlessly share traffic across those connections. And what that does is gives us the ability to avoid things like packet loss and latency and jitter. So if applications are going down circuits that are starting to have degradation issues of the things I just talked about, now those applications don't suffer the choppiness or the slowdowns that they once would have just riding over those issues in the network. So SD-WAN will steer those applications around any types of network issues that are occurring. We're monitoring the circuits and recognizing these issues and not driving over the potholes in the road, but swerving around them, if that makes sense. So really giving that SLA grade experience now over the public internet, whether that's coax and DSL or fiber and coax, whatever the combination of internet connections that customers are able to get. And we're really the intelligence layered over those internet connections to ensure application performance. So kind of the cloud-focused SD-WAN is what we would coin ourselves as. Okay. And I like the way this slide reads, that the cloud is only as good as your connection to it. So customers wanting to use more applications like hosted VoIP and Office 365 and Microsoft Azure and all these great applications that are out there, but the demand for reliable internet has somewhat gone down. I think it's kind of the race to zero from an internet connection standpoint, where you can get cheap connections now, but obviously that sacrificed the reliability component, where a lot of people were going with MPLS before. And I would say that this kind of coming into somewhat of an MPLS replacement to say, look, you can have this SLA grade experience now over the public internet using the circuits that are available. And Dan, feel free to chime in if you have any points you want to add in there as well.
Sure. I think you're covering it great.
Okay. All right. So kind of go to our architecture and what that looks like. So where you see on the left side of the screen where it says Bigleaf router and then the firewall and end user network, that's really where we're the most different in this space, is that we are not aiming to replace firewalls of our customers. We are not trying to be the all-in-one security provider. Our role really is the SD-WAN portion of the network. We're the reliability and reliability component of the network, leaving customers to choose whatever trusted brand of firewall they have and keeping these existing security policies they have in place. So one, this makes us a 5 to 10 minute self-install, which is great, but also really the least intrusive path to layering in this intelligence into your network. So we're really focused on what's going out over the public internet and not intruding on customers' firewalls and what they're doing from a security standpoint. Okay. So just to talk about what that looks like. So like I said earlier, we have our 4 WAN ports on our device where we hold up to 4 circuits of any type. And then we have the 1 LAN port where we'll pass off completely transparently to any firewall. Whatever trusted brand security our customers want to use is fine with us. Okay. And kind of getting to the outside of that part, like I said, we're really deployed outside of the firewall, so in the wide area network. So you'll see here where the circuits are terminating directly into our device, and then the right side of the screen is where we have our POPs around the country. So we have 6 in the United States, 3 in Europe. But really the thought process behind this was building out our own nationwide network to have direct peering with content providers like Amazon and Microsoft and hundreds of hosted VoIP providers. So anytime our customers are using cloud applications that are going out over the public internet, we have end-to-end control of those applications to make sure that if there is latency or packet loss or a hard outage anywhere within the network, we can detect that and move that application around those issues so they're not affected. So I would say hosted VoIP is a huge driver for what we do. VoIP services being very sensitive to network issues like packet loss and things like that, where circuits aren't really going down hard that often anymore, which is a good thing. But a lot of circuits are having degradation issues and those brownout situations where you're having 6% packet loss and your VoIP call gets choppy, but the firewall doesn't detect those types of real-time issues, so it won't fail over. So that's really where we come in and providing that reliability for any types of applications, being able to steer around those real-time network issues, regardless if it's a hard outage or just 6% packet loss that's going to make that call choppy. And here are the data centers that we are in today in the United States, and our 3 in Europe. Here's the facilities within the U.S. Yep. So we deploy the router on site that would work in tandem with one of our gateways, the closest gateway geographically to where that customer location is. So like I said, that end-to-end control, end-to-end reliability of any applications that are going out over the public internet. Here are some of the peering relationships we have within those facilities. So you can kind of see where that bookended technology comes into place, where, if we were just, kind of a premise-based solution with no network behind it, we would only be able to handle failover at the customer site. So really, like I said, the thought process of building out our own nationwide network was to have that end-to-end reliability to be able to see issues on either end of the equation, hard outages or all the minor issues we've been talking about. Okay. So that's really what our architecture looks like. I wanted to get into some of the features and how we're doing failover and things like that too. So I'll go ahead and jump forward to that. So out of these gateways, we're actually issuing our customers new Bigleaf public IP addresses. So along with us being firewall friendly and completely transparent to any on-site security our customers want to use, I would say our second biggest differentiator is really that we issue Bigleaf public IP addresses to our customers. So the benefit here for the customer is now you're getting one IP address layered over your multiple internet connections. So anytime a live VoIP call or an Amazon Web Service traffic, Office 365, any of these applications need to move between multiple carrier circuits, now the IP address won't change. So those calls won't drop. That Office 365 won't drop. It can move freely between these multiple internet connections with one Bigleaf IP layered over top. So usually a VoIP call would have to fail over to another connection. The IP address would drop and reestablish on the other circuit. And by that time, the call would have either dropped or had been silent for too long to where people that's just not sustainable for people using VoIP phones now. So that's really where this need grew out of, was to be able to issue agnostic IP addresses for whatever carriers are being used, and then being able to freely move applications between those different carrier internet connections. I would say one other well-received point here too, or a couple other things, is one, trying to drive home carrier independence a little bit too. So understanding that this makes it very easy to add and delete internet connections moving forward. Not the IP address is not living with those carriers anymore. So if Comcast wasn't cutting it for 1 month or something like that, being able to add and delete internet connections very, very easily moving forward. And then the last point I'll leave you with here on this is that ours are just a one-time setup fee for IP addresses. So the customers being able to get rid of carrier provided IP addresses for that $20 or $40 a month charge or whatever it is, us being a one-time setup fee or included has been really well received. So we can work with dynamic or DHCP, PPOE if it's DSL. Yeah. Okay. So you can kind of see where the cloud, as we go through more of these slides, where you can kind of see where the cloud first focus comes in, and this obviously being a huge part of that, of keeping live cloud applications around different network issues and not having to change IP addresses if it needs to go from CenturyLink to Spectrum to Comcast, for example, during a live phone call. So just to avoid packet loss or any other issues that keep occurring. Okay. So to kind of circle back a little bit, how we determine when to move calls and things like that around network issues is through our intelligent load balancing. So we're sending 10 packets a second down each one of the connections, and then the software in our device will recognize those packets and see latency, jitter, congestion of throughput, packet loss, so being able to make those real-time routing determinations based on these 10 packets every second. So we can see, okay, this circuit's clean, let's keep this live VoIP call on it, or this circuit just incurred 6% packet loss, we need to move this VoIP call to the other connection before it gets choppy. So that call moving over to the other circuit, the IP address stays the same. The end user on the phone doesn't even know that it just moved from carrier 1 to carrier 2 during that live phone call. Yeah, so like I said earlier, I keep using VoIP as the example because it's so sensitive to network issues like this, but even things like Office 365, being able to see a latency issue that would slow down an email server, for example, and being able to move it over to another connection seamlessly. Azure services, Amazon Web Services, all of these applications. Okay. Talking about prioritization and QoS a little bit here. So really the thought to gain here is that we have bi-directional QoS over the public internet. So that was obviously not achievable before SD-Wan was a product or productized within the market. But this is really where the bookended technology comes in with our router on site, with our data centers built into really the backbone of the internet to say, okay, we're on both ends of the equation. We can prioritize traffic in both directions on the upload and download and say, okay, VoIP needs to always have priority over this large Microsoft patch update that's coming down the circuit at the same time. So we automatically identify those traffic types and prioritize them. So we have 6 default prioritization levels that are out of the box, and then the ability to customize those based on different customer needs. I would say it's fairly rare, but we get it a lot in healthcare and things like that, where maybe there's a homegrown medical record cloud-based that needs to be prioritized over other applications. So definitely the ability to customize there, but those 6 default levels work for about, I'd say, 95% of our customers. And then the second point here, talking about adapting to variable throughput, that's obviously very common if a customer is using a coax circuit or something like that, where maybe it's not performing fully throughout the day. It's only performing at 70 megs if it's a 100 meg circuit or something like that. So just understanding that we're adapting to that circuit speed, and we're not going to send 100 megs of traffic down a circuit if it can only hold 70 megs at that moment in time. So adapting to the ingress and egress of what those circuits can hold at any given moment in time. But I do think this part's, really important for cloud applications, because now you're getting that prioritization, which was only achievable over private circuits before, but now over the public internet in multiple different redundant carriers. So the redundancy is built in. Your applications now are protected from network issues. And I kind of like to think of it as, building a foundation for a house. You're putting a strong foundation in, so anything you layer on top of it is going to work how it's supposed to. Talking about the implementation a little bit here, so I wanted to talk through what that process looks like. So when we get a signed order form, regardless of how many locations or if it's even a single location, we're going to send out a circuit detail request following that order. So we gather the customer circuit information on the front end and pre-configure our WAN ports on our device for those specific circuits. So we ship out the device in about a week to 2 weeks. Whoever is on site would plug in their multiple connections and just type in that new IP address in their firewall, just like any internet connection. That really meant to be a 5 to 10 minute self-install. Our team is 24/7 US based from a support standpoint, ready to handhold through that process as much as needed. I'll talk about support in a little bit more in a second. But really, the only reason that we're able to be this seamless of an install is because we're not requiring any security changes. So I think the biggest difference for us in the market is that every other SD-WAN provider has really come in to replace customer firewalls altogether, or have to disable a lot of functionality within existing security that customers want to use. And for us, we wanted to be very focused on our only product, which is SD-WAN, and being able to really seamlessly pair or partner with any security solution that's out there. That part has really worked in our favor of being obviously an easy install, but not kind of the intrusiveness of saying, okay, now you have to go with Bigleaf Network Security to use their SD-WAN solution. So sticking to kind of what we know best. And this is a good slide showing kind of what that means to be completely transparent to a firewall. So a little bit more technical here, but understanding that we're not taking over the firewall functionality that you see in red and black, but only taking over the routing and the prioritization, the things that are going out over the internet. Just showing here what it means to be transparent to a firewall. Okay. So on there, noticing it says site-to-site VPN. So a lot of our customers, like I said, because we're not replacing the firewall, a lot of our customers are running VPNs off of their firewalls for their site-to-site connectivity. And really our role is to enhance those VPNs to make sure that if a circuit goes down or starts to degrade with latency or something like that, that we can move those VPNs seamlessly between those multiple different internet connections. So the same process as earlier, just like any cloud application, the IP address stays the same, the VPNs won't drop, it'll fail over seamlessly between those internet connections. And we can also prioritize traffic within those VPNs. So obviously those are encrypted tunnels. We can't see the exact traffic types that are down in there, but we can work with whoever manages those VPNs or whoever manages the firewalls to just put some basic packet tags for us to honor whenever we need to prioritize within those VPNs. So we still get the question sometimes, my customer only has one internet connection today. They're waiting on a second one to get installed, or maybe they don't know yet if they need a secondary internet connection. So we still do get this. Hopefully, customers are starting to get to the point where you understand that redundancy is key in having diverse paths to the internet, but it still happens a lot where one connection is in place. So understanding that our role over one internet connection is the prioritization. So being able to prioritize applications even over a public coax circuit. Obviously monitoring to be able to see any types of issues, just not being able to obviously fail over to another connection if there is no secondary connection there. So this makes it very easy to add a second connection like we talked about earlier, because the IP addresses live with us now. And really customers can use this kind of as a cost justification to understand, okay, this circuit's having a lot of issues. We need a second circuit, or this circuit's performing fine. Now that we have prioritization over it, it's going to perform well. So I use a single coax circuit into my home office, and I use a Bigleaf router as well, just to prioritize my VoIP calls over presentations like this, for example. All right. So I wanted to talk about our dashboard and what this looks like a little bit, and our support as well. So this is what our portal or our dashboard looks like, what our partners and customers have access to be able to see all of their sites and different customers from one central panel. So being able to see really granular circuit metrics and details that are happening within the network at all times. So total utilization, latency, packet loss, like I said, total of both the circuits, and it breaks it down by each connection. We send out proactive alerts out of this portal. So if you want to set the different threshold levels to just hard outage notifications or all the way down into packet loss notifications, you can really get as granular as you need. And then this also shows the different QoS levels on each circuit. So being able to see exactly how much of each application type is being used. So for example, how much VoIP versus how much web browsing is being used on each of your connections to understand how it's being prioritized. And out of this portal too is, like I said, we send out the alerts of any issues that are happening, but that's really where we want to act as tier one support for our partners and customers, that if there is a circuit issue that's happening, we want to be the first call that's made so we can help troubleshoot that circuit. There are so many times where you're getting an alert and a partner or customer will call the carrier to really get no feedback on what's going on or kind of get the finger pointing. That happens a lot. So just part of our built-in managed service is that we want to be that tier one support. We can stay on the phone with you while you call the carrier together. So just a much more buttoned down approach to that too, and being able to nail down exactly where the issue is occurring. And then this comes out of that portal as well. We can send these out at the end of each month or pull these reports in any time that are needed. So this just shows a total uptime improvement, how many major and minor issues we fixed that month, how many QoS adaptations we made to keep VoIP calls live or other applications. So just a performance report here that we send out at the end of each month. So a lot of times things are just performing and working how they're supposed to. So just trying to keep a mind share here and showing, what behind the scenes, what was happening to why you're not feeling these issues. So in terms of feature slides, I really didn't have much more to go through. I'll hand it back over to Dan in a second just to kind of sum it up. Like I said, our focus is providing the reliability for applications over the public internet. We aggregate internet connections together through our device, seamlessly route the applications across the multiple carrier internet connections. And anytime there is an issue on a circuit, detecting that and moving it around those issues in real time. So our focus has always been around application performance. There's a lot of partners who have sold us as cloud optimization, VoIP protection, all these different terms. We've heard now that, the SD-Wan term has become very vague and kind of a buzzword. So I think some partners are trying to get a little bit more granular into different types of SD-Wan, where like I said, we've been seen as cloud optimization and those types of different coin phrases that we've heard. So feel free to let me know if there are any questions, and I'll hand it back over to Dan.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Ryan. So, so yeah, if we don't, strangely, it doesn't look like we do have any questions here. So if you guys do have any questions offline for Ryan, please shoot them over and we can get them. And Ryan, do you have your contact info if you want to just throw it up there on the screen?
Yeah. Let me, hold on one second. Oh, I need to get it to you. Sorry about that. I will. I didn't realize that was all I had on the front page.
No worries. Yeah. So if you guys do want Ryan's contact info, feel free to reach out to Bigleaf directly or just email your rep here at Viirtue, and we'll be happy to pass that along. So Alex, I'm going to unmute you, and I'm actually going to make you presenter if you're ready for it.
I am. Thank you, Dan.
No problem. And thank you again, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right. You should be able to share your screen when you're ready.
Okay. So are you guys able to see my Tenfold slide?
Yep, we can see it. You're all good.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, thanks, Dan, for the opportunity to talk to you guys today. I'm going to go over a little bit about Tenfold, what we do, how we help customers, and happy to answer any questions as we go through this. Our plan is to spend just a few minutes discussing Tenfold in general, what we do, actually spend quite a bit of time walking through a demo of the product and get a sense of what it looks like, how it works, cover pricing and implementation, and then help you guys identify when we might be a good fit for customers. And please, I'll leave it to Dan to kind of moderate, but however you guys want to interrupt or ask questions, it's fine by me. If you want to interrupt and ask them rather than wait. So at a high level, what Tenfold does is we integrate Viirtue's telephony platform with a number of CRMs, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, Zendesk, Bullhorn, Sugar CRM, and a couple others. And the idea is to be able to facilitate immediate customer identification when a call either comes in or is placed via Tenfold's click-to-dial. So you'll know exactly who's calling in and have the ability to not just see who it is, but then take notes and undertake the follow-up tasks or the actions that the customer wants their either salespeople or support agents to take in the CRM when they get a call, when they're having a call with a customer. So at a high level, it is a SaaS product, so it's fully cloud. There's no local installation or desktop install required for customers. Now, we can integrate pretty deeply into their CRM workflows, as we'll see in a moment. And it is pretty configurable by the customer, so little setup required and a lot of power in the hands of the end users or their administrators to configure how the system works. There are three big reasons people decide to spend money to enable CTI or integration with their CRM. The first is productivity. So a customer of ours like Adobe, they're using Microsoft Dynamics across 6 different locations. And given the systems they have to look at to figure out what's going on, it takes them 87 seconds to truly identify the customer and pull up all the relevant information to handle a support question. And so being able to immediately collate all that information and present it in a screen pop as the call is coming in saves a lot of time, and that drives straight to the bottom line in terms of enabling to handle more customer calls with the same amount of people. Second big reason people will invest money in this is to improve the customer experience. So unless you're Amazon, you're competing on the customer experience to some degree, and being able to, again, immediately have the context needed to have a good conversation. Not only does it make customers feel appropriately valued, but it also allows you to kind of cut to the chase a lot more quickly. So that can also help from a sales standpoint. Someone like T-Mobile, another customer of ours, improved their conversion rate by 70%. Simply by virtue of having all that information at their fingertips and enable their agents to have a better conversation more quickly. And the third big reason, and this is definitely one I would say that decision makers tend to focus on, is having complete and accurate data in their CRM. So these organizations have invested a lot of money in CRM, and often the reason they did so was to have a complete view of their customers and to be able to model out their business correctly. And when either sales reps or support folks are getting busy or for whatever reason aren't super diligent about logging every single conversation manually into the CRM, then you don't have the data to run the business. And looking forward, as AI and other kind of next generation initiatives come into play, those machine learning types of initiatives aren't going to perform very well if they don't have accurate data about 70% of the customer interactions that a company might be having, namely the ones on the phone. So someone like Wayfair not only saved a lot of time, but was able to enable next generation initiatives like AI by having accurate information about calls, who called, who they spoke to, how long the call was, whether it was inbound or outbound. All that metadata is something that Tenfold can push into the CRM without having the customer have to do anything. So just to give a bit more context, Tenfold is about 5 years old. We have funding from Andreessen Horowitz and Salesforce Ventures. So Salesforce saw fit to invest in us. And we recently hit 1.5 billion calls processed annually, and recently hired the CEO of Rackspace the president of Rackspace to be our CEO. So that's obviously, speaks highly of our potential here. I think the main point here is we work with a lot of large companies. We work with a lot of small companies as well. But I think it's fair to say we are kind of positioned as a premium offering. So there are other vendors in the space who can work with the Viirtue platform. We are probably a better fit at the higher end, where the need is not just a check the box type of integration to CRM, where they're really looking to drive a lot of value from that or have significant custom needs around that. There's a good chance we'll be able to support those, but we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So we basically provide a one-stop shop for integrating with Salesforce, ServiceNow, Dynamics, Zendesk, NetSuite, Bullhorn, and Sugar. So those are the CRMs we support today. There are some other CRMs that are out there that we either never supported or no longer support because we just need to make decisions about our engineering resources and making sure all our integrations are kind of up to standard. So things like Zoho and Infusionsoft we don't currently support, or HubSpot, but these are the ones that we do. And there's really a few things that make us a little bit different that we'll talk about. So first of all, we have a few different UIs that you can offer customers. So, and they facilitate different use cases. So for example, in Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics and ServiceNow, we offer an embedded option that is actually in the CRM. And that is going to work well, especially for customer care and support folks who are supposed to be living and breathing in the CRM all day long. And oftentimes customers will like that their agents are staying focused within the CRM itself. We also have a desktop application, which for PC and Mac, and that is a good fit for customers who may need to refer to other applications outside of the CRM to get their jobs done. So the notorious kind of chair swivel where they're looking at a green screen and they're looking at a billing application and they're looking at Outlook and then they're looking at Microsoft Dynamics. To be able to have a desktop application with all the customer data from the CRM put front and center no matter where they are, the ability to take notes and have that push back into the CRM and all the other attributes of Tenfold, but not have to be staring at the CRM itself. So that can be a big benefit to some users depending on their workflows. And then we also have a Chrome extension that kind of pops out when a call comes in or a click to dial is placed. And that we see most used in kind of sales scenarios where they're not looking at the CRM all day long. They don't want a large application front and center necessarily, but to have a pop out that comes as the phone is ringing to tell them who it is and link straight to the opportunity or what the case may be. That's when we'll typically see that one being used. So we do have 135 reviews on the App Exchange, on the Salesforce App Exchange. We do have a number of HappyNet Sapiens customers. So there's just a couple from last month that posted their feelings on the App Exchange. So we are a proven solution for the Viirtue platform, and it's we invest a lot in customer success as sort of a premium product, and so we're happy to have the kind of reviews that you see here. And again, the focus is on that seamless integration and bringing telephony into the CRM to help leverage that CRM investment. And with that, I'm going to hop into a quick demo, and then we can talk in a little bit about how we price and implementation and everything else. So before I do that, Dan, let me know if there's anything you want me to cover beforehand or if there's anything I missed.
No, I just had a couple questions pop in about the webinar being recorded, and yes, it will be recorded and posted to our knowledge base. So, but yeah, you're doing great so far.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to hop over and this I'm going to be demoing in Salesforce here today. This is the Lightning experience, which is what Salesforce deploys all new customers on. There are older customers on the classic version of this. Tenfold supports both classic and Lightning. For those of you who have customers on Microsoft Dynamics, we support both on-premise and cloud-based Dynamics installs, as long as it's 2016 plus, and that an on-premise install is internet-facing. So it's okay if it's on-premise, but it does need to be able to connect to the internet to be able to interact with our web services. Okay, so I won't go through every scenario here, but enough to hopefully give you an idea. So I'm going to place a call to my desk phone here and give you an example of what the user experience might be like. So let's say I'm in Salesforce looking at contacts, and we'll see a call come in, and this pops up from the side saying Alex Wetrich is calling in. I can expand it and see a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and answer this call. And essentially, a couple of things to note here. I'm going to actually hang up the call now as well. So what you can see, first of all, it tells me exactly who's calling in. It's Alex Wetrich, my title, and my account. So everything here is hyperlinked so that as the customer, if I want to go straight into Salesforce or my CRM to look at this information, I can do so. Although the idea is that we're bringing a lot of it into the UI itself. If I wanted to review recent activity before I speak to Alex or while I'm speaking to Alex, in the activity tab, we'll have any emails, phone calls, anything else about Alex that is pulled straight from the CRM and positioned here. So that means that I can, without having to look at Alex's record in my CRM, I can see everything I need. We also have a configurable information tab. So this is something where in the back end of the product, administrators can define across their CRM what is the information that I would like this particular role to see when a call comes in. So, for example, for a salesperson, it may be, maybe their spend to date this year, or maybe it's something you've identified as an upsell potential, or whatever the case may be. You can choose from across the objects that we support in the CRM which information you want to show in this info tab right out of the gate. So obviously it's pretty minimal here, but again, that's configurable on a role-by-role basis. So it doesn't even have to be one size fits all. You can have different teams can see different information in this tab. And then if I look at my actions tab, a couple things to point out. First of all, you may be able to see there's a little number 1 on the little binoculars. That is telling me that there is an open opportunity for this customer. So if I click here, I can see there is an open opportunity with Alex Co. for $250K. And so without having to take another step and manually relate this call to that opportunity, I can do so with just one click. And that, again, is a step that normally would require quite a few seconds to go do after the fact. I can do it while I'm still on the phone. The same is true for any cases. If there are any open cases, it will note the fact that there are some and allow the user to choose from the list of open cases to associate the record to. Of course, they could always create a new one if this is about a new conversation. If I go back to my notes tab, while I'm talking to Alex, I can say, great call with Alex. He's interested in purchasing more, follow up next Tuesday. And when I type follow up, you may have noticed a little calendar icon appear. That is using Tenfold's natural language processing to automatically create a task in my CRM for me to follow up on next Tuesday. And so again, without requiring yet another manual step in the CRM, I'm making it easy for the user to keep track of what's going on and make sure that all that information is captured in the CRM. In addition, you'll have lots of scenarios where the user may need to loop in someone else from their organization. Maybe it's a manager, maybe it's someone on another team. And Tenfold makes that easy as well. If I just mention someone's name, I can say, I'm going to ask Cameron Young to wanted to loop you in. And that will send Cameron an email with the content of my notes and a link back to the activity in the CRM to be able to be aware of what's going on. That's something that when we ask people how they do without that, they'll say, well, I have to either write a Post-it note or remember to send an email afterwards or walk over to someone's desk. That doesn't always happen, and this is a lot easier way to facilitate communication. Another thing I'll note here is, again, thinking about workflows when people are taking calls, a lot of the time what they're doing is they are filling out information in either a contact record or an opportunity. They may be requested to select from these drop downs in their CRM to categorize the call, or in some cases it may be required. So again, the nice thing about Tenfold is based on the role, based on whether it's being related to an opportunity or a case, you can choose which fields you want to present to your user and be able to log that information. So Tenfold is automatically pulling those options in from the CRM and presenting them to the user. And so you don't have to separately map all those things. And when you change a value in your CRM, you don't have to then go into Tenfold and change that value too. It's just going to read it straight from the CRM and enable the user to make the selection that you would like them to. A couple other notes while we're here. If I click on the ellipsis next to Alex, I don't have any, but what we'll do is we will search for public social profiles related to the user based on the email address in the CRM associated with that phone number, and display those. So whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, if there's a public social media profile, it can be helpful, especially from a sales standpoint, to be able to link straight out to that. And then we can also enable links out to the web as well. So depending on if there's a web application of some kind that the customer needs to refer to, we can typically take data in the CRM like an account ID or a person's name or something like that, and enable a one-click punch out to search another web application or public website with that search string. So again, that can greatly facilitate resolving a customer issue or enabling a custom workflow of some kind. So I'm going to go back here. A couple other things to note. We will save your previous 20 calls. So if you do get busy, you can always go back and take notes later on and have that information saved back to the original activity record. So it won't create a new one or anything like that. While you're on a call, we can facilitate launching out to a video conference with the customer. We'll send them an email with a URL for GoToMeeting or Skype or whatever the case may be. We can allow you to include pre-built email templates to send out to that user straight from the UI. And the same, optionally, you can send a text message out as well. So lots of, again, trying to think through the user's workflow and try to compress it wherever possible. So I'm going to go into Alex's record real quick and show you an example. So a couple things. So you'll note here on the activity side, first of all, that follow-up task is in the next step section. If we go into the past activity section, so this is the data about the call we were just on, and you'll see a few things. First of all, obviously the phone number itself, the fact that it's related to this opportunity has already been logged. It says IBC, which stands for inbound call, and so we know it was inbound. We know the status is completed. We have the disposition or call outcome that I selected from the dropdown. And we have the call duration, which I'd hung up after 8 seconds. So again, all that information about the duration, the direction, the disposition, the information about the call, who it was with, the fact that it was related to an opportunity, all of that has been automatically pushed from Tenfold into the CRM. Other than the disposition and the notes, all that data like duration and direction, all of that is captured automatically, and it's not actually dependent upon the agents either following the rules or even being logged into Salesforce or the other CRMs. So we're pulling the data straight from Viirtue and pushing it into the CRM. So that's a major difference than a lot of other systems, and it adds this kind of margin of comfort for your executive buyers who want to be told that all of that data will get in there no matter what, and they don't have to make sure their users are following all the steps 100% correctly every time for that data to get in there. It's going to be there even if their users are not following the rules precisely. So go back to a couple things quickly here. As I mentioned, you can go back and look at previous conversations. In the event that someone calls in and they are not in the system at all, the phone number doesn't match anything in the CRM, then you can certainly, if they call in and say, you know what, this is actually Cameron, I'm calling from a different number, you can obviously search the CRM to find the right person. If it turns out they are brand new, you can easily create a new lead, contact, or account straight from the UI here. By the same token, if you have multiple matches, and I'm trying to find an example here, I don't think I have any, but if you have multiple matches on the same phone number, which can certainly happen, it will do similar to what we've done here, which is it will present you with all of the matching options and allow you to select which of them is the appropriate one this time, and then optionally choose to save that, save the phone number to the record. And then from then on, you're in the UI that we showed before, which is allowing you to take notes and disposition calls, etc. Last thing I'll mention is you may have noticed here that the phone number has a little phone symbol next to it. That's indicating that the phone number is hyperlinked and the click to dial is enabled. Tenfold's click to dial actually works across Chrome, so on any website. So if you were to go into LinkedIn and see someone's phone number, that's hyperlinked as well. The call is placed through Viirtue and logged in the system, and the screen pop will come up. So and there's lots of flexibility there as well. But basically, any phone number on the web will be hyperlinked, and we'll place the call through whatever device is enabled, or whatever through the Viirtue phone system as normal. If they don't use Chrome, then we can still enable click to dial within the CRM typically, but it would only be within the CRM. A couple of things to note quickly. I'm going to quickly look at the back end and show some of the reporting. So we're not really trying to replace reporting. Either your reporting or the CRM's reporting, but at a high level, essentially, we do have some high-level metrics that are focused on overall call volumes, inbound versus outbound, but most specifically CRM related. So what percentage of the calls that user is having during the time period have notes in the CRM? Which ones match records in the CRM? If you have users with a lot of calls that aren't matching back to CRM, either they're not talking to customers or they're doing a poor job of relating those calls back to the right place afterwards. So there's some decent information to be had there. Some people will put this kind of thing up on a wall board. And fundamentally, again, you can, if I go into features, you can get some idea of the configurability of the product. So I'll show, for example, this custom layout editor. When we were looking at the information tab earlier, that lists the different information to be pulled. Again, you can go into a layout for a given user and say, exactly which fields would you like to pull in from your Salesforce for that role to have. That's not a very good example. So whether it's in the contact or the opportunity or the account or whatever the case may be, for each type of object in the CRM, you can configure exactly what fields show up in the info section here. So very, very configurable by the customers. So that's most of what I had to show. The thing to keep in mind, again, is that this is the embedded version here. We also do have the desktop application, which I mentioned. I might just pull that up quickly just so you can see what it looks like. It's basically identical, and from a feature standpoint, is identical to the embedded application. Okay, just pulling that up here. So again, it's resizable, of course. So again, it gives you a little more real estate if you like it, but otherwise, this basically is the same product. I'm going to hop back to the presentation here. Any questions on chat or any other questions that have come through?
I think you did a good job, Alex. We're pretty much in good shape. So okay. Yeah, did you have anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, I was going to cover pricing and implementation, unless you'd rather not, Dan.
Yeah, no, all good. Go ahead.
Okay. So we are priced on an annual subscription model with named users. This is the same model that CRM providers use, so prospects will be used to that, even if it isn't necessarily how they purchase telephony in a lot of cases. Our standard pricing is $25 to $50 per user per month, and we do have 6,000 a year annual minimums. As you can tell, this is a bit of a premium product, so there may be some users for whom it's overkill. But there's some users for whom there's enormous value. Implementations typically a one-time $1,200, and one suggestion I would make is to try to engage your CRM stakeholders if this is something that is of interest. They get it, and they understand the cost savings and time savings for them, and they'll advocate for you guys, and we'll put the pricing in context of what they spend on CRM, which is typically quite a bit more than what we charge. We are a fully cloud architecture, and we connect via the NetSapiens API. So it's nice to be able to say that there's nothing that the customer's IT group has to install on premise. While the implementation and the connecting the Viirtue and Tenfold and the CRM is pretty straightforward, we do typically set an expectation of a 14 business day implementation because there's configuration, as you can see, that they'll often need some help figuring out the best approach for them. We want to QA their different scenarios with them, make sure everything's showing up as expected. And then we do train administrators as well. So all of that can be done typically pretty easily. And in terms of engaging with us, typically we would want to have a quick conversation with your customer to understand their workflows and then put together a really tailored demo that helps establish the value and help differentiate you guys as well. So that's typically what we would recommend for engaging us. So where we're a good fit at a high level, when integration with CRM isn't just a checkbox feature, or where you need to make a stronger ROI case. So because we can go pretty far into people's workflows than someone like a RingCentral or someone else that has a generic integration, we tend to save a lot more time for customers than other integrations. So averaging about 6 hours per user per week, and that's like an extra head for every 7 people on their team, which is pretty strong return on investment. We can automatically surface cases. We can use natural language processing. Those types of things save a lot of time. And we can accommodate custom objects in CRM, other systems that are based on Salesforce but are not vanilla Salesforce. These are all things we can work with, which is not the case for a lot of folks. Where either being fully cloud and not having an on-premise piece or being embedded in the CRM where those are critical, then that we may be a good fit. There are other tools like GoIntegrator, which typically require a desktop application installed, and we don't in a lot of cases. And it does sometimes muddy your value proposition of being cloud telephony if you then have to have an on-prem piece to enable a CTI feature. When it's critical and when the value is capturing 100% of every single call has to be captured no matter what, that's where we're a good fit because of our architecture and the fact we're not reliant on the agents and the agent authentication even to log this stuff. And then finally, when you're trying to position as a premium and customers are expecting the best, we are used by some very large companies. We're invested in by Salesforce. And we have enterprise-grade support. So 7-to-7 support is included via phone, web, and chat. And we also enable 24/7, 365 support as well. So that's what I would suggest. Those are probably the areas where it might make sense to bring us in. But happy to stop here and answer any questions.
Yeah, so we got a couple questions about pricing. What about like a smaller client and things like that with just a few users? And they do have their minimums there, so a smaller customer likely would not be a great fit unless they're willing to pay those minimums for just one user. And I also did want to hit on too that both Tenfold and Bigleaf have partner programs. So when you reach out to them directly, they can get you guys set up as partners, so you can sell their products. But yeah, just to answer that question, I had a couple of people ask that. If it's just a one user situation or 1 or 2 users, that wouldn't be the best fit just because of those minimums.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't. And we do have customers who only have a handful of people, 3 or 4, who have paid those minimums because they're seeing the amount of time it gives them back, and it's equivalent of hiring more people at lower cost. But yes, in general, that is a tough argument to make for just one person.
Sure. Any other questions you guys want to pop in the chat box? We had some others come in, but I addressed them privately. That's no biggie. All right, awesome. So great. So if you guys do have any questions, you feel free to either PM me or your rep offline. And also, if you'd like either Alex or Ryan's contact information, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to pass that along for you, so you guys can provide these products to your customers. But again, thank you again for joining us. We will record this, or it is being recorded, and we will throw it up on the knowledge base for you to view. But thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, everyone.